Alright, what is up guys? It's Zura here, and it's the long-awaited Set 11 tier list, POG, right? Before we start, I would like to set some criteria. So first off, this is specifically for tournament play. I don't give two shits what you play on ladder, because ladder does not matter. Ladder is filled with bad players that play scuffed ass decks, so you can basically win with anything on ladder if you get lucky. But this is specifically for tournaments. Alright, so tier 1 to me is decks that I myself am confident taking and thinking that I can win with this deck. So, like, if it's in tier 1, it's something I myself would take. If it's tier 2, it's something that I would not take to a tournament, but would probably play around with on ladder and do decently well with. But not good enough for tournament. Everything else is just like decks that are there, that are seen, but are just not good. At least in my opinion. Right, so without further ado, let's start. Alright, so I'll start with dumping a shin to everything else. Oh look, everyone's favorite Great Nature. Everything else will go. Everything else. Everything else. Is there anything else here? I don't think this deck is very good. Let's see. I'll do explanations after this. So I'll just lay them out first. I think Tachis are like okay. I think they still belong here though. I'm a little iffy on Tachis. I think these are the decks that are like just not that good, not good enough in my opinion. So problem with this, my main problem with Magus is that Pentagonal is your main ride, right? And she crits, and what this critting can, like, if your opponent's at 4 and you crit them, you can't tom them the next turn. Yeah, it's cool you can tom them crit them from 3 to 5, and then tom them trying to do that. Like, that's definitely a thing, but like, it's just a little conflicting to me. Pacifica, it's basically just a worse spikes, to be honest. Like, they do similar things, do multi-attack. The break rate definitely helps Eternal Idol a lot, but I don't think the deck is enough to be here with like a good solid playable deck. It's okay, but it's not amazing. Same with Shadows. It's like okay, not amazing. It's too fair. It's too slow too. Just wait like half a month. We're probably gonna get Revengers. Don't be sad. This deck is too fair. Doesn't do enough. Yeah, it restands one whole lane. You also get the scale, which is really cool. But yeah, a little too fair. Dinosaurs. They have cool multi-attacks and stuff, but the problem is some of the cards off the top of that deck, remember, are like a little bit too xenophobic name-wise. So, like, the main thing with the grade 1 that responds to stuff is if you go for the Dark Rex play, try to attack, like with that, you ride the Dark Rex, like, it can become a little awkward where you just can't call it. So, yeah. It's cool it crits. The deck is definitely not unplayable anymore, like it used to be, in my opinion at least. And yeah, oh yeah, anything you don't see here is like straight up unplayable, in my opinion. Like, you can probably stack a few games on ladder, but like, don't even consider it for a tournament. These are like the playable enough decks, but it's not something that you would expect to win with, in my opinion. Alright, the next tier 2, Angels definitely go here. Magatsu goes here. Transport Glory goes here. The Blood goes here. I'll order later. I'll just do it like this first. So I'm gonna lay everything else out. You go here. Ezreal actually falls down here. I think Spikes belong here too. This tier 2 is gonna be huge. As my requirements for this tier 1 is pretty strict. Yeah. This is a huge ass tier 2. Holy. This is a huge ass tier 2. I think I'll leave it out for now. I'm not sure what I want to do. But I think the tier 2 order is something like Ezreal, Spikes. This is regular Maelstrom. Something like this, I think. Oh yeah, Dungry has to go somewhere here too. Holy shit, ordering this is so hard. This is definitely at the bottom. Oh my god. This is definitely at the bottom too. Yeah, I think that's at the bottom. It's like, the blood isn't too amazing. As much as I love this deck, it's somewhere here. Alright, so this is more or less ordered tier 2. So we'll start from the bottom. Angels, they get to run 5 heals, which is always good. Zerakia lets you do multi-attacks, Helm lets you do crits. You can toolbox your entire damage zone, which is really nice. Any PG that falls in there, any crit intercept you want. Like, the deck just has access to things, but like similar to these decks, it's a little too fair, but I think being able to toolbox extra zones, like extra, just straight up an extra zone like that, like puts it above these two decks. Yeah, it's a little piece reliant, but I think you have enough ways to tutor for stuff that it warrants this deck over these two decks. Or I think it's a good comparison with Great Nature. I think this is just like a better Great Nature in a lot of ways, at least to me. Next we have the Blood. It's an Narukami deck, but the Blood is a little expensive, but base Vermilion is still a good card, so that's why it's still relevant to some extent. Gunners are stupid. Base Vermilion is still a good card. The Blood is a solid card. So yeah. Liberators, they just have a really strong turn 2. They have a really strong turn 2, and then the deck just kind of does nothing after that. Like, you have Blast Blade to cheat like 1 damage, but that's basically the extent of the deck. If you don't heal, you like don't get to do Blast Blade more than like once or twice, because the deck has no counter chargers. It's a solid deck with too many glaring problems, but it's still good enough that I think it's full on to it. Next we have Ripples. The downside that's a Ride Chain deck. The good thing is that, again, this deck has a really strong turn 2 push. Like, you could just vomit an entire hand turn 2, and like, if you get super lucky, you get slammed for like 3 or 4 damage. But obviously, you don't go for that stuff like that because you don't want to get punished and just not have a hand. But again, the deck has a strong turn 2 push. Dia is still a good card. Glory is still a backup win con you can consider for the deck. Although I personally wouldn't play it. I personally just play the red one instead because the red one's cheaper in Counter Blast. And then Gino's Persona Blast is actually super strong. You just reset your entire board pretty much. So it's your standard like 5 attack turns, but it's tied to a Persona Blast. But it's good, so it's not a hit. A little too many problems. The deck absolutely falls apart with the Ride Chain. So yeah, that's why it's like lower in here. If this deck wasn't tied to a Ride Chain and can do the same shit, then like this deck would be like much better in my opinion. Next we have Genesis. I chose Yatta to represent because I think Yatta's better than Fortuna, but this is Genesis in general. This is basically just like 4 Break Ride, Fortuna, oh my god, Yatta, and then like a 1-up whatever. And then the triggers is just not 9 draw. It's somewhere between like either 9 crit if you focus on Yatta, 9 stand if you focus on Fortuna, or like some degree of splits, I guess, because you really just don't play the draws just because deck out is a problem. Otherwise, you just play 9 draw, but deck out is an actual concern for this deck. Yeah, like again, this deck has a super high ceiling with its turns because Fortuna can let you just stack a bunch of, not even stack, like Fortuna just lets you hit a bunch of stands. Yatta is really strong because 3 crit Vanguard, you soul blast everything, so you just proc all your skills within your deck out, stuff like that. Restands 2 cards, draws you 2 cards. Like, it's strong. The new Fruit Sisters also let you soul charge clean, which is really nice. But like the deck, it basically lacks any way to push damage early. Pretty much is the problem with this deck, in my opinion. Which is why you do play the crits and standing stuff. But you know, I think this deck has enough flaws. Basically, it's just deck out is a problem, so you can't play 9 draw. You have no way to push for damage early, and the deck also doesn't plus early, so like you might actually run out of hand, which is a problem. Yeah, strong deck. I can definitely see this deck getting better if someone can like solve the deck, but like at the current moment, I think it's somewhere here. All right, Magatsu. I really don't want to put this deck here at all. I want to put it down here, but it got results. there was a fucking Murakumo mirror in one of the qualifier blocks. Like that is beyond me how hard they stack to get there. Yeah, basically this deck is ride, chain, or die. You hit face like 3 times turn 2 and pray they don't deal, and that's basically the entire deck's game plan. Shira can let you stall too. Like Shira can just basically extra PG, which is nice. It's just a turn 2 Smork deck, and then you have ways to not die. And then Magatu also has multi-attacks, but it's not the best. The scaling of the deck's really nice because you can call 10k boost. That's definitely not terrible. I probably shouted out it a little too hard earlier, but this deck I still don't think is like too. Next we have Transcore Glory. This is the build that goes for Transcore first, and then you try Goichi and stuff. I don't think this deck is like very good, but Glory is still a stupid card, so that's why it's still here. My main problem with the cheesy Glory Transcore is not even the matter that you need the self ping. It's more because if your opponent has a hand, this basically does nothing. So like, it's like you basically did nothing for a while. You just sat on a Transcore, a vanilla 11k pretty much, and then you just sat there. You maybe did some DS stuff. By that point, you might as well just be on base Maelstrom. I think base Maelstrom being able to play for value is a little nicer than like the potential random cheese free game. Yeah, that's why Transfer Glory is here. I don't think the Transfer Glory turn is unfair enough. Like if your opponent has a hand, it doesn't do anything. If they didn't have a hand, they're probably dead anyways. So, yeah. It's very much win harder. I think that's it's very win harder. Next we have Ethics Blau. My problem with this deck is that when this deck doesn't do anything, when you get your game plan against a high roll deck, kind of, because you need to see your pieces. If you get to do all your plays, this deck is like up here, like no question. Because like this deck has probably the best kill turn in the game, because you just kill from 3. You check for like I don't know the exact because I never played the deck, so I don't have it, but like you check for upwards of like 3 maybe 4 PGs, which is super strong. But the floor of the deck is that you just sit there doing it, which is like big problem in my opinion for tournament play. Like if you just want to high roll like 7 or 8 rounds, sure, this deck is fine, but like I personally value consistency above everything. So this is why I don't think this deck isn't too high up. But if you're the kind of guy who likes high roll decks, then this deck is definitely a good pick because you can just kill them from 3, which is really nice. Yeah, TLDR, when you pop off, you're an amazing tier 1 deck. When you don't, you're like trash. Next we have MLB and Jewel Knight. They're basically the same deck. Like they are just crit decks carried by Gancelot Blaster Blade. Like Jewel Knight's superior called grade 1s, which to me is kind of whatever because they're not intercepts, so why do I care? Like these decks are basically good because Gancelot and Blaster Blade are stupid cards, and then like the crit pressure is also like solid. It's a solid deck, but I personally I don't rate them too highly because they're just not unfair enough to me. Like Gancelot and Blaster Blade are just the crutch of these two decks. If they didn't exist, these decks would be like all the way down here. Yeah, TLDR, Gancelot, Blaster Blade is stupid. Next we have Dungaree. There's actually a few more reasons than just lol, E-Rads are better. Because E-Rads exist, their starter of choice is Zaishin or Linchu, meaning your Dan will never be alive if you run into those into E-Rads, which will be very common. Same with Steel Dragons, they have the quarter run, they can pop your Linchu. Or not your Linchu, your Dan. And then if you don't get the base Dungaree first ride, and you have to ride Unlimited first with your Dan popped, you sit there being vanilla for like 2 or 3 turns. So yeah. So like it's a combination of Dan dies too much in this current meta, as well as there is just straight up a better Narukami deck that you could be playing. So yeah. That's what this deck is like. It's still a good deck because it's a Narukami deck. Naru still has the shell of like 8 Gunners, which is super strong. But yeah, you just have something better to play, and it's just not amazing in the current meta. Next we have Aqua Force. This is the regular Maelstrom list of like 8 Maelstroms, 4 Dias, the standard stuff, basically the global list, what global has right now. The deck really hasn't changed. You have like Redbon as an option now, I guess, but the only real difference now is that you have the 4 new PGs. Yeah. You can play for value with Maelstrom. Glory is still cheating. Or base Maelstrom. Glory is still cheating. The deck's a little piece reliant, but I think this deck is still better than these decks, more or less. Because like DL lets you cheat damage, Glory is stupid. Base Maelstrom lets you get good value out of your resources, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think this deck is still pretty solid. Next we have Spikes. So Spikes, either build, both builds are pretty solid. Bad end build and not bad end build. Both builds are like solid enough. Emperor is just a strong card because his skill is just a +1 to begin with, because you put one in, summon 2. Yeah, you could argue that you tag cards out, but they're back in your deck, so yeah. I guess you could argue it's not a plus. I guess you argue it's a -1, but Emperor still enables a bunch of strong multi-attacks. And this Spikes also have Jelly Beans, they have Recyclable Heal, and then they also have they also scale really well because of the taggers. Is there anything else about this deck? The deck is kind of vanilla before Limit Break, and you don't have Self Pings too, so those are kind of issues with the deck. Which is why I don't rate them this high. And yeah, this is just a solid deck that has a few issues, but it's good enough that it's a very solid contender for a strong deck. Next, Ezel. I personally still think Ezel is a tier 1 deck if Erads and Steel Dragons weren't so good and so popular, because Ezel's whole gimmick is I try to out-resource you with Spirits and Intercepts. Spirits are cool. We pop like 1 Intercept, get 2 damage every turn. But the thing is, your other gimmick is just not there anymore, because Erads just ignore Intercepts. Steel Dragons blow up all your Intercepts. And the deck is a little too fair too, for what it does, but yeah. It's a solid deck that, to me, it's a deck that's solid, that has everything, but it's just not good in the current meta. So yeah, that is why I have Ezel in top of tier 2. I think it's a very strong deck, but it's just not good in the current meta that we're in. Next to tier 1s. Alright, so I'm just gonna I know exactly where I put this, and this. This, like this. And then, this is the only deck where I'm not too sure. I think it's the top of tier 2 deck, kind of deck. I think this looks right. So since Dote is here, this is Dauntless Dote. So the deck is basically just a high roll deck like Ethics, except your floor, when you don't get the high roll off, is still Old Duke, or not Duke, not Duke, Old Dote, which is still a solid enough game plan where you can win as long as you flip a few triggers here and there. Because you have the Berserks, you have Dote's Persona Blast, which is still really strong, and then you also have, obviously, Face Overlord, right? Everyone knows LoL top deck Overlord for game. But yeah, this is why it's very comparable to Ethics Blood, except your floor you can do things, and when you don't get when you like quote unquote brick on game plan on Rhydomus first, the deck can still do things. But yeah, I will mention that the deck has a lower ceiling than Ethics Blau, but the ceiling is still there. So yeah, so I think this is like a top of tier 2 deck. I think it's a little too high rolly in my opinion to be a tier 1 deck. Right. I see chat is asking. Yeah, this is pure Steel Dragon. More or less pure Steel Dragon. Yeah, I'll start with Sook. So the thing is, Sook is in another situation where it's like Ezel, where it's good against literally everything else except for the top 2 decks. Because like Sook, not even Era, Sook can even find against Era. It's just Sook, just literally just can't. The matchup is super unfavorable for Sook against Steel Dragon, because Corduroy shuffles your deck, so you lose your gimmick of stack. Yeah, like if you're confident enough that you can outplay the Steel Dragon player, or that you can just get lucky and just dodge all of them, then Sook is still tier 1. Like if you because like the matchup is bad, but it's not unwinnable. Like if you watch the one of the Like, there was one of the qualifier games where it was a Sook versus Seals, and the Sook player managed to win, despite getting his deck shuffled like once or twice. So like the matchup is doable, but it's like an outrageous amount of having to outscale and like outluck the opponent. But yeah, if it wasn't for Seals, I'd probably put Sook as like second best deck, but Seals exist. I think Seals are a little better. Speaking of Seal Dragon, we'll get to Seal Dragon. So there's a few ways to build this deck. There's a few ways to build this deck. You can play with Dauntless, which I personally tried and did not like, and don't think it's a better build because the problem with both Kagero decks is that you don't have a lot of any draw power outside of draw triggers. So very likely you won't have hand with Seals. So that's why you don't use Dauntless. There's a build where you go 8 blockades, 4 overload, 1 whatever. And there's another build where you go 12 Seal Dragons with the Seal Dragon Breaker and then like 1 whatever with that. I think both of those builds, either or is fine. Like, they just do you value the Break Ride. Yeah, but the reason it's good because you have Corduroy that can snipe starters. The CB1 snipe to give them an intercept. So yeah, you can snipe stuff like Conroe. You can snipe stuff like Lin Chu Saishin, and then use your Conroe on the next turn. Yeah, Corduroy is just a really strong card. Base Blockade is still a strong card even now, but ignoring intercepts is never a bad thing. So you can just go you can go ride Base Blockade, just hit base, and then once they're at full range, you just ride Inferno and kill them. And Inferno just killed all the intercepts. So, you can go the Weathercloth route where you ride the Weathercloth and you play like a little more like of a value game where you don't want to make you make it so your opponent don't want to commit boosters so they might not hit you as much. Yeah, there's a few ways to go around it. I think that's pretty good that the deck has like a few builds that you can play around with, but regardless, the deck is still super strong because Inferno just ignoring intercepts is super good. Because you blow up intercepts, you scale super well, and then you have like a good backup plan in base blocking too. Solid deck, very strong deck, but the deck is a little. If you don't ride base blockade, to me, the deck is a little vanilla before Limit Break, so that's why I think Erats are a little better. But by no means this deck is amazing. Yeah. Next we'll get to Erats. Erats has been at the tops ever since it came out. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this, to be honest. Like, if you know what it does, you know what it does. The deck is just super aggressive. You just ignore intercepts like every turn with Gunners, Deathsight, Saucers, and then Vowing Descendant is still probably the best play in the game you can make right now because if they're at 3, you check for 2 PG. If they're at any more, you just add 1 PG. Yeah, so you usually like hit, you like blow up their intercepts, you just hit 3 times, send resend checks for another PG. I don't think there's too much to say about this. This deck has been good since it came out. It's been good for 3 months now, and I don't see it going away anytime soon because the deck is just super, super strong. Like, the deck basically just ignores a part of the game. Like, if you notice, these 3 decks all ignore a certain portion of the game. These 2 decks ignore intercepts. This deck literally cheats and ignores your PGs. Like these 3 decks all do really unfair things. These decks don't do unfair enough things. I think that's what I put. These decks are unfair. These decks do unfair things, but they aren't straight up unfair, and these decks are just too long. But yeah, I think these are my thoughts. I think you could probably mix around the order of tier 2 here a bit, but I think these are the definitive 3 best decks in the format right now. If you're going to a tournament and your format is like pick 2 decks, you pick 2 of these decks here. If it's pick 1, obviously you pick 1 of these here. If you don't want to take my word for it, if you go look at all the qualifiers, all the qualifier datas, you'll see that Kagero and Narukami are over half the chart, and then Sook is still there at like a solid enough like 8 to 10-ish% of players. The only reason this deck is a play is this deck is hard to play, and you have one super bad matchup. But yeah, I think this is my thoughts. You can screen cap this, you can post this everywhere. Feel free to disagree, but like, please give me reasons down below in the comments. Give me reasons why you disagree, agree, anything. Just don't give me comments of herder, I disagree with you, dislike, blah blah blah, shit like that. Like, I'm open to discussion, but these are my thoughts. And yeah, that's it for this tier list video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Peace out.